Greetings, whiskey folk. Welcome back to 3 Minute Thoughts, and today we're going to see my 3 Minute Thoughts on the Canadian Club Chronicles 41-year-old. Yeah. And, yes, it says on the side, the Water of Windsor. I knew there was more of a name on it than that. Okay, so first of all, uniqueness of flavour. Let's see where we're at here. So from what I recall, not a particularly unique flavour profile. If I was tasting this blind, I wouldn't be confused and blown away. I'd probably think, yeah, it's a Canadian-style whiskey. Potentially with a bit more wood than normal. But I don't think it does anything wildly different to several other whiskies that we have. I mean, I don't think this is particularly hugely different to, say, Canadian Club 20, or even the Wisest 35, or, you know, even some of the younger stuff, to be honest. I don't think this is wildly different to a lot of sort of standard high corn content Canadian whiskies. That bearing in mind, I would give it the flavour profile probably around 3.9 is where I'm landing. That's out of 5. So the next score out of 5 again, the quality of the spirit. So, I'm not going to tell you that this is the best spirit ever made. I mean, just because it's 41 years old doesn't automatically mean it's amazing. And it's frankly not. As corn whiskey goes, this is not an amazing whiskey. It is, however, a very good whiskey. And I think part of that is actually not the whiskey itself, but how it's been presented. It's presented at 45%, and it's been actually blended as Canadian whiskey is allowed to be with some other ingredients. It's got a little bit of young rye in there to up the flavour. It's got a little bit of sherry and a little bit of cognac, and it does give it a bit more depth. And this is, you know, I've tried some corn-centric, very, very old Scotch whiskies before, and frankly, this is better. I mean, I love Scottish whiskey, and, you know, I don't discriminate. I love whiskey from wherever it's from. And this is just as good as old single grain Scotch when it's made out of corn as well. I do personally have a preference for the wheat distilleries, but I think this is perfectly good whiskey. So not blown away by the quality, but also not upset by it either. I'm going to say 4.2 on the quality of this one. The story, however, is where this comes into its own, because this is the follow-up to the Canadian Club 40 and the first of a series, and we're not sure where that series is going to end yet. At time of recording, the 43-year-old has just come out, but when this was released, it was the oldest Canadian whiskey ever released, and that just keeps being upped one every year as this series continues. And this is the whiskey that started off the whole thing, the whole series, which is kind of cool. I think the presentation is lovely. The box it comes in is a lovely shade of blue. It's got a nice engraving on the back of the bottle, so you can use it as a decanter afterwards. Everything about the story and the way that this whiskey's been presented has been absolutely spot on. And let's not forget, at the end of the day, this is a chance to try something that is 41 years old. 41 years old, and that is special. I mean, regardless of how you feel about the quality of whiskey and how it, you know, goes with age, the fact that this is 41 years old is, you know, undeniably a special thing. I straight up want to give this a 5. I think the story of this whiskey is a straight 5. I think it's a very cool whiskey that I don't think, if you were to offer someone a dram of this whiskey, I don't think there's anyone that would go, no, I'm fine, thanks. Value? It is weirdly good value. And, you know, it's quite expensive. It's around the $300 mark. I forget. I should have probably written it down in my notes. We do still have some available at the Strath, by the way, of the 41-year-old. You know, that's not a small price. And if we were basing it just on the uniqueness and the quality, yeah, that's rough. That is very, very rough. But you've got to put the story into context with that, and you've got to put the fact that it's a very limited edition. You're not going to see whiskies of this age for much longer. I mean, this is the kind of whiskey where you can you could buy a case of this and take it to Europe in 5 years' time, and it will pay for your trip. You know, it's that kind of cool story whiskey. I can't help, even though it's quite pricey, but give it a value of 4.8. I think it's excellent value, all things considered. So that gives this whiskey my score of 17.9, and how that works is out of 20, if it reaches 15, then in my head that is good enough to be on the shelf of the Strath, and this is very much more than good enough to be on the shelf at the Strath, which is why it is and why it still is, and why we bought quite a lot of it, because we wanted to make sure that in the years to come we still had some of this whiskey available, and it is still available at the time of recording. Sláinte.